Hello, everybody. This is Jenny Milne, as most of you will know. I just decided, having submitted, my blog and a breakdown of my work, the address of my websites. I think I've given you a pretty comprehensive view of what I've done during the masters and why I've done it. But after I submitted everything last night, I thought, you know what, it might actually just be helpful to do a little talk, just to communicate, visually again in a different medium. Just what how much I've accomplished through the masters, and I don't mean that in terms of work necessarily, but the whole process, the journey, where I started out, where I've ended up. I thought it might be helpful just to talk through it. So take it or leave it. I think this is just an added extra. So if I start at the beginning, when I arrived on the MA, in September last year, I kind of hit the ground running, I think, really. Over the summer, after I finished the honours degree, I was invited to produce an exhibition for the Warsaw Garrison Command in Poland through a connection I'd made when I'd been in Warsaw in 2018 to give a presentation. It was serendipitous, really. I don't think the garrison commander or myself could quite believe that we met, outside in a military, outside my hotel. I was photographing a military service, a commemoration for people that had been deported by the Soviets during the war. And there I was taking photos in the rain, and at the end of the ceremony, the commander, this tall gentleman, comes up to me in very smart black uniform, and I thought, oh no, I'm in trouble. I'm in Poland. I shouldn't have been photographing this remembrance service. But instead, surprisingly, he wanted my photograph. He wanted to put information on the website, and it was so random. I just arrived back at my hotel in a taxi in the rain, and this was ongoing. So I was unprepared, was not looking my best. But anyway, long story short, I sent him the photograph along with some information about my grandfather who'd fought in the Polish army prior to the war and after the war. During the war. Information I'd uncovered during my research. And so I sent a bit to the commander of the Warsaw Garrison, and he got back to me. He said he was just amazed. And long story short, he put me in touch with I think he's involved with the press side or communications of the garrison, Captain Martin. I won't even try and pronounce his last name. And they invited me to do an exhibition based on the work I'd done of the Polish soldiers, descendants of Polish soldiers here in Fraserburgh, and said, after seeing all that work, that they would like me to focus on my grandfather. So over the summer, they wanted it for the middle of August 2019 to be shown in September of that year. So I worked all summer flat out, really, with Polish military historian Janusz Rall, who I've worked with many times. In all my projects, he's just been great. So that involved a lot of collecting, images, historical images, and putting all the research together. And I did it all in Illustrator. I found out afterwards I probably shouldn't. I should have used a different program. But so when I came to start the MA, that was already done. And because I began it after I finished my last degree, it really was the start. It was the foundation for me of the MA. I immediately I had commitments. I had a talk at a museum the first week or second week of the MA in Fraserburgh, then another talk during the week. Then I was up to Shetland, where I was invited to hold a conference about the work I'd done in Israel, which which was to do with the images that I took and the stories of the terrorism victims there, and just an overview of the country. And that was a fantastic opportunity, and that was my beginning. I really started with a lot of stuff going on. So I got back to university after being in Shetland and staked my desk, and began to get my head around what actually am I going to do this year. I've created a huge body of work over the past. Actually, it began in my HND year, where I started to do this family project, recording all the things that I'd uncovered. The historians, the genealogists, I would take their portraits, and I'd put it together in a very simple form in a book called Fragments That Remain. And then I moved on and started looking outside my own research to other people's families. I started in my hometown of Fraserburgh, created a huge project there with descendants of Polish soldiers, Holocaust survivors, somebody that had been deported to Siberia. It was a big project. I called it From Generation to Generation. And then the following year, in my honours year, I'd done a lot of work in Israel, contacted victims of terrorism, parents mostly that had lost a child in a terrorist attack. Gone out there, documented that, put it together, along with just, my journey through the country. So I had all of this. It was all important work. It wasn't all, to get me through. It wasn't to get me through a degree. It was all important work for its own reasons. So coming to the MA, what was I going to do? What was I couldn't go back to another country like I'd done in Israel and do another giant project like that. Time wasn't available, and, COVID-19 eventually proved that wouldn't have worked out anyway. So I was unsure, how to approach what I'd done and how to develop an MA. And that's all, I think, it's written down in my early proposal that I wanted to draw on the connections I'd made with these communities, the Polish community. I was in contact with the Polish consulate in Edinburgh. I did help them a little bit with a board that they wanted to produce, and but how was I gonna disseminate all of this? And then there's my own personal photography. I'm always taking photos, many photos, documentary style photos of family life, and take photos for other people, places, all these kind of things. What was I going to do with it all? So that was the question at the beginning of the MA. And so I thought, well, I'm going to focus on what I know's ahead of me. And what was ahead of me was an exhibition that Libby had invited me to hold in the Sir Ian Wood building. So I met with George Sheen and Look Again, and we planned that it would be best to hold it in February. And then I started to work on that. I thought, well, if I focus on that and a few upcoming things that I had, it would help me to process what I was going to do. So that exhibition, I divided into 3 projects, but I tied them all together. So it was like a journey. I wanted to give a visual presentation, oral presentation. So I was able to do that in the amphitheatre. Many interesting people were invited. Surprisingly for me, both external examiners who were up at the time came, and the feedback was really good. It was very moving. A lot of opportunities were going to come out of that. I was invited to Edinburgh by a representative of the consulate to take the exhibition down there. In fact, she insisted, please come and bring it down here. I was put in touch with a man on Stephen Jaff, who's on the Scottish Council, not Scottish Council of Jews, the the I can't remember. Anyway, he's based in London. He's involved, with I think it's the Board of Jews in London. He was very interested in the exhibition of the work I'd done in Israel, and was very surprised actually that it had been held in a university. So he managed to secure some sponsorship through the equivalent of the Israeli Red Cross to take that exhibition, to other places in the country. So that was something that I was working on. I spoke at the Scottish Jewish Archives, which was really successful event. About 200 people came, I think. And surprisingly, actually, I just had somebody directed to my website from the Scottish Jewish Archives from Dubai. Wrote me a very moving letter. I've been very moved by the work. And so, it had a far reach. These things were reaching quite far. I enjoyed the seminars. Deep mapping, I wrote about that in my reflective essay, really helped me to understand my own process. On top of that, it was fantastic to have the peer crits, the reviews, all of those kind of things are so helpful. And, I'm quite a sociable person. I like to draw from other people. I like to pick other people's brains. I like to involve other people in what I'm doing. And I would very often pop into the office and speak to Ian Morrison, when my grandmother's passport came to light, this wartime document, that had a Nazi stamp in it. And Ian saw it. He's like, right, Jenny, you could have a map. He was building a whole design around what could happen. Ian, if you're watching this, you remember that. And I'd still like to get together with you over that. I enjoyed talking to Dave Crossan. He was really helpful. He helped me with some of the design for for one of my exhibition boards. Cameron Campbell, of course, always very, very helpful because he's been a part of my journey for the last 3 years, and we just kind of click, in terms of the historical things. I really, really benefit a lot from the conversations and the time that I spend with members of staff and other students. Met some of the students, the BA students that had graduated the year before. I met up with them. I think I came and spoke to the BA students as well. Just love the whole vibe, the whole environment of the university. So that all progressed. And then, of course, COVID-19 happened. And as I drove home, I thought, what's going to happen now? All this, I couldn't quite believe that it was going to last as long as it has, but deep in my heart, I suppose I knew it was going to. And so I came home and I could no longer make plans, one by one, all the appointments, the opportunities that were open were cancelled or postponed. And that momentum that had been building suddenly, or came to a very sudden halt. And I began thinking, why didn't I choose to do a nursing degree? Two of my friends decided to study after I did, and they both went into nursing. My own daughter is a nurse, and, I've 3 children in care work. And it suddenly became very, very important, And I thought, what am I doing? What's its relevance to what's going on right now? And I knew that there was a relevance, and that in time it would become apparent again. And, going back through all the research that I've done, even in the ghetto in Warsaw, the poets and the photographers and the writers and the singers, the musicians, they were still functioning because people need creativity. Even in the most desperate times. I mean, one of the guys whose name I can't pronounce, who lived in a building that I researched, he was called the ghetto poet, I think they called him, the chronicler of the sinking, and very accomplished guy. I think he might have even been a photographer, although there was another photographer in that building. They were important. Their voices were important. People need more then we obviously need care. The nurses were vital. The doctors are vital, but creatives are equally vital in a different way. And so I kind of knew that deep down. But at the time, I was thinking, what have I done? I'm never going to never going to be able to work after this. So I decided, because I was confined to barracks, I would focus on the dissertation, and I would look through the website that I'd started to build. In fact, I really focused on my website for the first submission, PG Dip submission. And, and I looked at what I had around me, and in the attic was an old box of my dad's negatives that I'd been given 4 or 5 years ago. A friend of mine, photographer friend Denise, who finished the BA, was actually scanning negatives from her work in America, I think a couple of decades before. And I thought, why don't I do that? Why don't I get those negatives out, get a little scanner, and start processing them? So that's what I did, and made me very reflective. And then I started my dissertation, which was very difficult, considering I'd written about it twice before, my work twice before. It's like, I have this island, that I had to walk around look at from every perspective. And I'd written about individual projects. I'd included my backstory to some degree, but I never really focused on it. And during lockdown, I came into possession of some really old historical images that were found in my grandmother's possessions. Some atrocities in Poland, which were quite shocking, actually, to suddenly see. And original photographs of General Anders, excuse me, General Władysław Anders. It was quite amazing, to get these things. And I thought, what do I do with them? They probably need to be in a museum. Well, okay, I'll find a museum to give them to, but I'll give them to the museum with the story of how I have them. So, I began to think about these things, and I incorporated that into my dissertation, which took me 2 months to really pull together. The first month I found incredibly hard to write. I was writing about 500 words a day, and then the next day I would go and start from the beginning. And by the time I got to where I'd finished the night before, it was afternoon and I didn't have much more to write. And I think partly is because I still had everybody in the house, including my husband. And it's not that they were intentionally distractive, but I needed space to think and be with what I was doing. So once my husband went back to work, I think I really began to get my teeth into my dissertation. I had some excellent meetings with Cameron Campbell that were very helpful. I wanted to do a piece of work that I was really pleased with. I didn't just want to write a dissertation. I wanted to write something that really took something from inside me and put it onto paper. A record for the future, if you like, but something that would speak to other people, that would help other people. So I ended up writing about the recovery of images and how those images helped in my own recovery. I didn't realize that it was a grieving process. Even going through my dad's photos, editing them, it was all part of the same process. And of course, it's a human story. We all go through loss and things like that. So really, after I finished my dissertation, a couple of days afterwards, I just knew I've got to divide my website. I've got to have a website that focuses on this work, that focuses on not only the search for my family, but is a research aid for other people. I want it to be, not only a Holocaust memorial site. I have, survivors' stories on there, and one of whom died during lockdown, which was, again, very confronting, moving, but very confronting. These stories need to be told. I wanted it to be an educational resource, but also just an insight into a family that had been broken into pieces, and the recovery of those pieces, them being put back together. The individual stories that I've listed, everything that I've put on that website, I've thought carefully about, and I feel is really relevant in so many ways. I've had advice from other people. I looked for feedback. In fact, the last person I've written to for feedback is Miriam Margolyes, and I don't know if she'll get back to me. I have spoken to her through lockdown, and I thought she would be quite helpful because she's a documentarian. She has those kind of human life insights. She loves genealogy, and particularly Jewish genealogy, and so hopefully she'll get back to me. But if she doesn't, it's fine. So that's kind of how I came about a resolution of what I've done. And I just wanted to communicate that, really, that I think, everybody said to me, Jenny, don't do the MA in a year. You need 2 years. I didn't have 2 years to do it in, but I needed the time to sit with my work. I started off, making mind maps, and Campbell was so helpful. She says, Jenny, your work is all about healing. And, I started doing mind maps, which are documented actually on my site. And I've gone from making mind maps, with just so much information here, there, and everywhere, to actually, I think it's quite refined now. And I have, should I say, like a settledness in my heart that this is the direction that I should have taken, and that was made available to me through lockdown. So I tried to take a bad situation and make it work in my favour, I suppose, for preparation when there is no more lockdown, and then the resource is there. One final thing I suppose I wanted to say is that I haven't studied to get a qualification necessarily. For me, it's always been about the work. It's always been about the importance of the work that I've engaged in. And, one reminder of that was during lockdown. I was invited to a Zoom, not conference, it was a talk by Arnold Roth. I covered Arnold's story. His 15-year-old daughter, Malky, was blown up in the Sbarro pizza restaurant bombing in Jerusalem in 2001. Malky was the last one to be found, and I met Arnold in Jerusalem. I really liked him. We possibly have a family connection, which we discovered when we talked. But that aside, he invited me to this Zoom conference, and it was so moving. I was thinking about it the following day. At the end of everything, and Arnold is involved in an international battle for justice for the bomber, the mastermind behind the bombing, during which many people died, including many children. She ended up with a TV channel in Jordan, and he's battling for her extradition to the USA. She's on the FBI's most wanted list. Arnold's done a lot with his wife to bring her to justice, because she's, well, apart from anything else, she's completely no remorse. And I knew he was involved in that, but at the end of the day, he was a dad, and he loved his daughter, and I think it's that's behind my work. It's that connection, our family connections, not even family connections, our connections with loved ones, and a connection as a human being, to other human beings. And Arnold reminded me that, that project I'd done for him, on him, was, I was just a little piece of the chain that could help, that could help him find justice, maybe. But that could tell his story. Malky's grandparents were both survivors, and yet her grandmother had laid in Auschwitz, I think, dreaming of the streets of Jerusalem, and it was in the streets of Jerusalem that her granddaughter was killed. And I'm not afraid to tackle pain and loss and those things in my work, because they happen. They're a part of life. The train crash the other day in Aberdeen. How many people got on that train thinking they would never get off again? And I don't mean to become morbid, at all in what I'm saying, but these are the important things in life. They happen to us, and it's an area of life that we need to tackle, maybe as artists, and me as a photographer, not only a photographer, a storyteller. And for me, I always finish with the positive. There's a way back from these things. We can continue on, and we can make a difference. And, we can love and be loved and give and receive and all these kind of things. And I think I'm maybe rambling right now, but I wanted to just give you a visual background, which I'm sure I don't know how many people are going to look at this, examiners, or maybe just you, John. But I also want to thank every member of staff, everybody that's been there for me, that's encouraged me, to come out of the home after being there for 27 years. I left school at 15. I had 2 good exam results, and the rest were absolute bottom out fails. I passed my art exam, O-level art. I was a bit of an artist back then. I used to do pen and ink and sketching mostly. And English. I passed my English oral exam with flying colours. I talked about my goats, I think, that I was keeping at the time, and also English language. So maybe those are just inherent talents, and we should develop those talents. And I'm so thankful that, all these years later, that I've been able to develop those talents. And my encouragement word to everybody else would be, if you've got something that you've wanted to do, that you desire to do, it's possible. It's possible. You focus. There's a time for it. I couldn't have done this before. I've just had exactly the right window of opportunity. I waited till my son was old enough for me to not be in the home all the time. My youngest son, he was just about to go to secondary school, and what was supposed to be 3 months night classes has turned into 5 years. I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have gone on and done a master's if I'd finished my honours year this year. Because of COVID. So I feel like I've just got exactly the right window of opportunity, and I've taken it. And I just want to thank everybody that's been a part of it. It's just been amazing to work with you, be with you, learn from you. And I hope that continues. I want to stay in a university environment. I feel that I've got a lot to offer, and I would love to help other people develop projects and things. That was always hard for me to start with. I never knew what I was going to do. It was always a lot of stress. Oh, what am I going to do my next project on? Now it's like, okay, which one should I do first? So I've changed a lot, and I just want to thank everybody, and hopefully I'll see you soon. So I know this isn't very professional, and maybe it's not even necessary. And I've talked for half an hour now. I need a glass of water. But if I was talking to you face to face, I'm sure it certainly wouldn't feel as one way from my point of view. So I'll finish here, but please enjoy my work above everything else. And whatever happens, happens. Okay, bye bye.